Royal Australian Air Force Base at Butterworth in central Malaya is one of the largest ever peacetime flying bases maintained overseas by Australia. Situated on the west coast of Malaya, almost directly across the Malacca Straits from the island of Penang, it is the centre of operations for nearly 1,000 Australian airmen. From here, Australian air crews fly Australian-built Sabre Jet fighters and Canberra jet bombers. While the RAAF Sabres and Canberras bulk very largely in operations from Butterworth, there is also a Royal Air Force component based there, and occasionally visiting V-bombers show their sleek and deadly form, and an RAF helicopter squadron provides an aerial maid-of-all-work. Butterworth is a big base, and one gets a vivid impression of its manpower strength when a visiting air officer inspects the combined forces on the tarmac area. RAAF, RAF and Malayan Regiment members parade against a familiar background of aircraft and palm trees. Butterworth is part of the British Commonwealth Strategic Reserve and is in Malaya by agreement between the British, Australian and Malayan governments. Backing up the Australian flyers is a ground organisation of tremendous ramifications. Because of wear and tear imposed on equipment in the tropics, the maintenance units have to toil unceasingly. It's a busy runway. During routine training, aircraft take off and land in an almost continuous stream. Sometimes there's an interruption to local flying with the arrival of a Hercules transport aircraft. The Hercules maintain a courier service between the Australian mainland and Butterworth, which bypass the slower shipping lanes. But fighters have priority of landing, and the Hercules takes its turn in the landing pattern. The fast turboprop Hercules keep up a never-ending supply of equipment needed to keep Butterworth at its required peak. Of a training exercise, which is to be staged for the fighter and bomber squadrons. While the air crew briefing is taking place, the ground crews are busy. The tropical heat is already apparent, and while armourers fit rockets to the racks of the Sabre fighters, on another section of the busy aerodrome we can find the Canberra ground crews busy around the Australian-built bombers. They wait, however, until the last moment before the Canberras are to be taxied before they remove sun covers and cabin cooling units. While the Canberras are rolling out onto the tarmac, the fighters are being readied for takeoff. The runway at Butterworth is a long one of the longest in the Far East, and was built by Australian airfield construction workers a few years ago. Quickly the takeoffs get underway, and ceaselessly the radar eyes keep watch on any aircraft operating in the area. This banner target might look like the side of a house, but the young Australian pilots know it's a very different proposition when you're approaching a target at a speed of 400 to 500 miles an hour. Every Everybody gets a thrill out of fireworks, but it's a different sort of thrill when Sabre rocketry takes place. High skill and proficiency are essential with a rocket weighing 60 pounds. The target is a small floating marker, and the Sabre fighter is rocketing downwards in a screaming dive. Not all the training is in the air or on the ground. If a pilot is forced to bail out over water, it's of little use coming down safely if he can't operate his own one-man dinghy. So it's into the water for these pilots. Maybe there's no great discomfort in a swim when the everyday temperature here reminds one of Australia's best surfing weather, but there's the instructor's constant reminder that they're not playing a game. This type of boating is deadly serious, and a man's life can depend on a thorough knowledge of his survival equipment. Landings at Butterworth are always against the outline of the ever-watchful radar, and then the fighters are quickly marshalled into the tarmac area in readiness for refueling and servicing. This morning, the officer commanding the base is waiting on the tarmac to talk to some of his senior officers, but it's not long before the discussions are transferred to a spot in the shade. But the day-by-day activities go on at the base. Aircraft are flying, ground crews are working, and across the water on the island of Penang, the families are busy.